Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Nurul Ifah binti Abi Zabah. I will be presenting to you on a paper entitled Zakat Reporting and Computation by Islamic Banks. For the introduction, Parker, 1982, recognized the corporate annual report as a communication medium to the public. In Malaysia, companies that are registered under the Companies Commission of Malaysia or Suruhanjaya Syarikat Malaysia (SSM) are required to publish their financial statements only. On the other hand, banks need to submit their interim report and audited annual report to Bank Negara Malaysia (BNM). However, according to our observations, not all Islamic banks publish their annual reports. Instead, they choose to publish their financial statement. 11 Islamic banks publish financial statements, and the remaining 5 Islamic banks publish annual reports. There are several differences between annual reports and financial statements. A company's annual report includes, in addition to the financial statements, the auditor's report, management's discussion and analysis, and notes to the financial statements. An annual report is wider in scope than the financial statements. Using the documents retrieved from these banks' website, the discussion of this study is to achieve the main objective, which is, are there any specific rules, regulations, or guidelines for zakat reporting and computation that Islamic banks follow? The first part of the discussion is on the regulations applicable to Islamic banks in their practice of zakat reporting. The second part focuses on the zakat computation method and rate. The findings in this paper are based on content analysis of the annual reports and financial statements. For zakat reporting, Islamic banks can follow 3 regulations, rules or guidelines which are issued by Bank Negara Malaysia, Accounting and Auditing Organisation for Islamic Financial Institutions, and Malaysian Accounting Standards Board. For zakat computation, there are 7 issuing bodies that discuss their recommended method or rate. Firstly, First Zakat Conference in Kuwait, National Fatwa Council, Jabatan Kemajuan Islam Malaysia, MASB, Jabatan Wakaf Zakat dan Haji, Zawfi, and lastly, Pusat Pungutan Zakat Majlis Agama Islam Wilayah Persekutuan. Since more than half of the Islamic banks had not released their 2021 annual reports and financial statements at the time this paper was written, this study is based on the documents last published in 2020. Then, content analysis was applied on those documents. Content analysis is commonly used in examining written material, including annual reports. This study focuses only to Islamic banks in Malaysia while gathering zakat information in the documents. The gathered information are important in comparing with existing regulations, rules and guidelines. The list of Islamic banks was taken from BNM website as the sample. According to BNM, there are 16 Islamic banks, 11 local and 5 foreign, registered and licensed under BNM. For zakat reporting, it is found that none of the Islamic banks followed the disclosure requirements in IOFI guidelines, which is exposure draft financial reporting for zakat. This scenario could be caused by the stricter disclosure requirements of IOFI in comparison to MASB and BNM. In addition, IOFI is not the standard practice adopted in Malaysia. 4 banks followed BNM's disclosure requirement by making a statement that they did not pay zakat. This is because they were either not obliged to do so, or their headquarters or holding company would pay zakat on their behalf. These banks are Al-Rajahi Banking and Investment Corporation Malaysia Berhad, HSBC Amanah Malaysia Berhad, Kuwait Finance House Malaysia Berhad, and Standard Chartered Sadiq Berhad. On the other hand, Maybank Islamic Berhad, MBSB Bank Berhad, and RHB Islamic Bank Berhad followed the minimum requirements by MASB by disclosing their zakat computation method and their responsibility toward business zakat. However, these banks are considered did not follow BNM's disclosure requirements as they did not disclose their compliance with Sharia regarding their calculation or computation. The remaining 9 banks comply with the disclosure requirements of both MASB and BNM by disclosing the following items. They disclose their zakat obligation, responsibility towards zakat, method, beneficiaries, zakat payment, and compliance of zakat calculation with Sharia. 4 Islamic banks computed their zakat using the working capital method, or also known as the net asset method, and 5 Islamic banks used the growth method. These two methods, the working capital method and the growth method, are recommended by MASB, Jauhar, and PPZ Mawib. Meanwhile, 2 banks use the profit and loss method or the net profit method. Maybank Islamic Berhad was different from the other banks as it used shareholders' equity to compute its business zakat. For the zakat rate, 5 banks used 2.5% as their zakat rate. Afid Islamic Bank Berhad used 2.5775% and Alliance Islamic Bank Berhad used 2.575%. Only Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad stated in their annual report that they refer to Jauhar's manual. 5 banks possibly adopted the zakat computation method and rate as recommended by MASB, Jauhar, and PPZ Mawib. Alliance Islamic Bank adopted the same method as these 6 banks, but the banks used the zakat rate as recommended by the first zakat conference held in Kuwait in 1999. Afin Islamic Bank Berhad and M-Bank Islamic Berhad possibly adopted the methods and rates recommended by Jauhar and PPZ Mawib respectively. On the other hand, Hong Leong Islamic Bank Berhad perhaps adopted the computation method preferred by PPZ Mawib since the bank used the net assets method. Other banks did not disclose their zakat rate, probably because there was no requirement to do so. There are a few concerns regarding the zakat computation method and rate. Firstly, the banks did not disclose why they choose a particular method over another. PPZ Mawib mentions in its website that the profit and loss method is suitable for businesses that do not issue financial accounts or statements, such as the small traders and retailers, including farmers market, night markets, restaurants, eateries, food and beverage stalls, and other related businesses. Secondly, Alliance Islamic Bank Berhad did not disclose why it chose the zakat rate of 2.575%. Last but not least, it is possible that the banks followed 2 different guidelines, with one guideline used for the zakat computation method and another used for the zakat rate. The main objective of this study is to compare the practice of Islamic bank in reporting and computing their zakat to the existing regulations, rules and guidelines worldwide. Guidelines prepared by MASP and BNM are the commonly used by Islamic banks in Malaysia in reporting their zakat. Meanwhile, the guideline prepared by IOFI is not commonly used by banks in Malaysia. Thus, it is suggested that this guideline to be included as a reference in reporting zakat. For zakat computation, the freedom of choice is given to the banks as long as they pay their zakat. Therefore, this study suggested that Islamic banks choose one particular guideline and disclose related information in their published documents. That's all from me. Thank you.